This morning you climbed into your car, turned a key, tapped the gas, and cruised along at 40 miles an hour without flexing a single muscle. 100,000 years ago, that exact same trip would have taken 2 full days of walking barefoot through wild, dangerous land. No roads, no paths, no signs warning you what waited ahead. For nearly all of human history, going anywhere meant gambling with your life, and your own 2 feet were the only ride you had. Today, you can cross the entire planet in a single day by plane. You can order something made on the other side of the world, and it lands on your doorstep days later. Moving from place to place has become so effortless that we barely notice it anymore. But for roughly 300,000 years, every journey any human ever made happened at walking pace. That one simple limit quietly shaped everything about how people lived, ate, married, and explored. So let's rewind to where it all began. Start with your feet. Humans are the greatest long-distance walkers on Earth, though we are far from the fastest. A cheetah can blast past 70 miles an hour. A horse can hold 30 for miles at a stretch. You, meanwhile, top out around 15, and only for a few desperate seconds before your lungs give out. Speed was never really the goal. You can walk 20 miles, rest, then wake up and do it again the next day, and the day after that for weeks straight. No other creature on the planet can pull that off. Your feet have natural arches that work like springs, and your Achilles tendon stores energy and releases it with every stride, sparing your muscles from carrying the whole burden. A ligament runs along the back of your neck, keeping your head steady while your body shifts beneath it. Add roughly 2 million sweat glands cooling your skin, while other large animals overheat and collapse, and you get an endurance machine. You weren't built for speed. You were built to keep going forever. Back in 1978, paleoanthropologist Mary Leakey uncovered a trail of ancient footprints in Laetoli, Tanzania, pressed into hardened volcanic ash 3.6 million years earlier. 2 figures walked upright, side by side, leaving behind the oldest known proof of bipedal walking ever discovered. Strangely enough, those prints look almost identical to yours. For millions of years, that was humanity's only mode of travel, and somehow it carried us further than any other species has ever gone. Roughly 70,000 years ago, humans began drifting out of Africa. It wasn't a single grand march. It unfolded slowly, across thousands of years, generation after generation, small bands pushing a little farther into land no human eyes had ever seen before. They crossed the Middle East, spread across Asia, reached Europe, pressed into Siberia, crossed a frozen land bridge into Alaska, and kept moving south through the Americas. All told, that's around 15,000 miles walked without even knowing what waited at the end. What often gets left out is that these travelers weren't wandering aimlessly. Archaeologists have dug up obsidian tools hundreds of miles from the nearest volcano, seashells found deep inland, and amber traded across entire mountain ranges. These groups covered enormous distances on purpose, hunting for connections, trade, and specific resources they already knew existed because someone before them had passed the word along. This wasn't random roaming. This was networking. One careful footstep at a time. Walking worked beautifully until something blocked the way. Deserts could be crossed. Mountains could be climbed. But a river stopped travelers cold in their tracks, and rivers cut through nearly every migration route, every hunting ground, every trade path imaginable. For hundreds of thousands of years, flowing water acted like an invisible wall. You either found a shallow spot to wade through, or you simply turned back around and tried elsewhere. Then, somehow, humans cracked something no other land animal has ever managed, crossing open water on purpose. In 2003, researchers digging on the island of Flores in Indonesia found stone tools dating back roughly 800,000 years. The catch is that Flores has never once connected to the mainland. Even during the driest ice ages, at least 12 miles of open ocean always separated the island from the nearest shore. Someone, somehow, made that crossing happen. Nobody knows exactly what they used to get there. Wood rots away. Bamboo rots away too. Whatever carried them across has long since vanished into dust. But those stone tools remain, proof that the crossing truly happened. The earliest boats were probably accidents rather than inventions, a fallen log or a bundle of reeds lashed together by chance. Nobody designed the first raft. Someone simply grabbed something floating to survive a stream, and it worked. What came afterward, though, was completely deliberate. Around 65,000 years ago, humans sailed from Southeast Asia all the way to Australia, a crossing spanning at least 60 miles of open, empty ocean. You cannot spot Australia from the far shore. Nobody drifts there by pure accident. Someone built a vessel sturdy enough to float, aimed it toward water they could not see across, and started paddling into the unknown with no guarantee of land ahead. Picture that moment for a second. They left solid, familiar ground with zero certainty that anything waited on the other side. The oldest surviving boat, the Pessie canoe from the Netherlands, is roughly 10,000 years old, little more than a hollowed-out log. Yet the underlying idea stretches back much further, since people were already settling on islands they could never have reached on foot, long before that ancient canoe was ever carved from a tree. Then the Polynesians pulled off something almost unbelievable. Starting around 3,000 years ago, they sailed across the Pacific, the largest ocean on Earth. They built sturdy double-hulled canoes, packed them with food, animals, and entire families, and sailed thousands of miles guided only by stars, swell patterns, bird flight, and cloud color near hidden land. No compass, no map, just sharp, disciplined observation that still amazes modern navigators studying it today. They reached Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, and nearly every livable island scattered across the Pacific. Some single voyages stretched past 2,500 miles of open water with absolutely nothing in between to guide them. Walking had already conquered dry land. Boats had now conquered the sea. But one stubborn problem remained unsolved. You can walk 20 miles easily, yet you cannot haul a 200-pound animal that same distance on your own back. For most of human history, the real limit on travel wasn't distance at all. It was weight. You could only move whatever your body could physically carry, and your body starts breaking down somewhere between 40 and 60 pounds. So people got creative and started cheating the limits nature gave them. First came dragging. Kill something large, drop it onto an animal hide, and haul it back toward camp across the dirt. We know this happened because archaeologists have spotted distinctive wear patterns on ancient hides, marks that only appear after something heavy was dragged a very long way. Later, someone dreamed up the travois, two long poles tied into a V shape with a small platform slung between them. Drag the narrow end forward, and the wide end carries the load, spreading the weight evenly so one person alone could suddenly move over 100 pounds. Here's the strange part. The travois might be one of the oldest hauling tools humans ever built, yet almost none survived, since wood and leather rot away quickly. We only know it existed because people were still using travois when Europeans first arrived in the Americas, many thousands of years later. But the biggest breakthrough in moving heavy loads wasn't something anyone could build. It was something you could befriend instead. Around 15,000 years ago, humans domesticated dogs, our very first animal partners. One of their earliest jobs was hauling weight across long distances. In the Arctic, dog teams pulled sleds over ice and snow. A single dog could move roughly 45 pounds, and a team of 6 could carry an entire family's camp gear. Dogs were incredibly useful, but still small. Humanity needed something considerably bigger and stronger to work with. About 5,500 years ago, on the steppes of modern Kazakhstan, humans tamed the horse. We know this thanks to the bowtie culture, whose archaeologists found bit wear marks on ancient horse teeth, proof something was repeatedly placed inside their mouths for control. Traces of mare's milk were even found baked into old pottery. These weren't hunters chasing horses for meat. They rode them, milked them, and rebuilt their entire way of life around them. The horse changed absolutely everything that followed. For roughly 300,000 years, the fastest any human could travel was about 4 miles an hour, ordinary walking speed. On horseback, suddenly, you could hit 30. In a single generation, the human world effectively shrank eightfold. Journeys that once took weeks could now be finished in days. Messages traveled faster, trade routes stretched farther, and warfare changed forever as mounted armies struck before anyone even saw them coming. Donkeys hauled goods across scorching deserts. Camels crossed the brutal Sahara. Reindeer dragged sleds through frozen Arctic snow. Llamas carried cargo over the towering Andes. Wherever humans settled, they found whichever local animal fit the job best and put it straight to work. Still, one more invention was coming, and strangely, it took an unbelievably long time to finally show up on the scene. Here's something that sounds impossible until you really sit with it. Humans crossed every ocean on Earth before anyone ever invented the wheel. The oldest known wheel turned up in the Ljubljana marshes of Slovenia, dating back roughly 5,200 years. Boats stretch back at least 10,000 years, probably further. Horses were tamed 5,500 years ago. Humans had already sailed to Australia 65,000 years before that wheel ever existed. The wheel turned out to be one of the last major transportation inventions, not the first. And oddly enough, it didn't even start out as transportation at all. The earliest wheels were built for pottery, a spinning disc used to shape wet clay. At some point, someone glanced at that spinning disc and flipped it onto its side, wondering what might happen if something heavy sat on top of it. The first wheeled vehicles were slow, clumsy, and built from solid wood. They cracked easily on rough ground and constantly sank into mud. Honestly, a horse without a cart often moved faster than a horse dragging one behind it. Then, around 2000 BC, someone engineered the spoked wheel. Lighter, stronger, and dramatically faster. Suddenly, chariots existed, blending real speed with real cargo capacity for the very first time. Roads followed soon after. The earliest paved road we know of appeared around 4000 BC. Once wheels, roads, and horses were finally working together as one system, humanity had something that genuinely resembled organized transportation. Trade exploded across regions. Empires became realistic. Armies and supplies could now move hundreds of miles without the entire operation collapsing from exhaustion, hunger, or simple logistics failure. So here's the full arc. For 300,000 years, humans had nothing but their own legs, and still walked across the entire planet. They hit water and figured out how to float across it. They needed to carry more, so they learned to drag it. Then they built frames. Then they partnered with animals. Then they tamed the horse, and the world shrank overnight. Then they invented the wheel, and it shrank again. Every single one of those breakthroughs took thousands of years to arrive, and each one was built directly on top of whatever came before it, quietly solving problems that would have seemed impossible to anyone living in an earlier age. Now you sit inside a metal box on smooth pavement, cruising at 70, and casually call it a commute, barely thinking twice about the miracle underneath you. You fly 3,000 miles across an entire ocean in 6 hours and get annoyed that the Wi-Fi is running slow. You carry a machine in your pocket that can summon a car to your exact location in 4 minutes, and somehow you're irritated that it takes 5 instead. Your ancestors walked barefoot for 15,000 miles across continents they couldn't even name, heading toward places they had never once seen. They did it because they had no other choice. Staying still simply meant dying slowly where they stood. We solved the ancient problem of distance so completely that we eventually forgot it was ever a problem at all. Every highway, every airport, every stretch of train track on this planet exists because 300,000 years ago, someone stared at the horizon and simply started walking. They had no idea where they were going. They went anyway. And that, more than anything else, is the most human thing there is.